The seemingly placid landscapes of India are home to seething contradictions. A flourishing, vibrant democracy and a progressive society with enviable economic growth, India still harbors crushing feudalism, abject poverty and bloody faction-dominated politics. Rayalaseema in Andhra Pradesh had the dubious distinction of being one of the most violent and dangerous areas in the country. Ridden with ravaging feuds, political vendettas and gory murders that terrorized the populace into abject submissiveness, Rayalaseema seemed to exist outside the bounds of modern society. Governed by bloodthirsty warlords whose private armies freely used bombs, sickles and guns, the district achieved a notoriety that is unrivaled even today. These killing fields birthed fearsome factionalists who wielded enormous power in the affairs of the state and the lives of the common man. Factionalists who were beyond the law, beyond bounds of all accepted morality. This is the true story of one such man who walked the road to perdition. A brazen killer who sowed death and destruction for 14 long years, who terrorized the populace with a brand of violence that was unprecedented in its brutality, who defied the law of the land and supplanted it with his own. The story of a man who descended into an abyss of alcoholism and self-destruction. This is the story of Michael Vijayakumar, who on the verge of eternal damnation cried out to the Lord Jesus Christ and experienced an explosion that changed his life forever.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now am found. Was blind, but now I see.
Born into a family of doctors, Michael had a Christian upbringing and privileged education. His parents wanted him to follow in their footsteps, but at the age of 26, Michael plunged into active politics. He believed that temporal power and wealth defined a successful man and put all his energies to acquiring them. Determined to become a member of the State Legislative Assembly, Michael joined the Indian National Congress. This brought him into direct conflict with powerful political leaders and factionalists. He adopted the brutal methods of his rivals, paying them back in the same coin. Michael metamorphosed into a power-hungry, arrogant and cruel man. Violently temperamental, he physically assaulted and terrorized anybody who chanced to cross his path, and even his family did not escape his unpredictable and irrational temper.
We used to dread coming home for holidays, and we never used to meet our dad because most of the time during the day he used to go on political visits. He used to be always out of the house, and he used to come late, very late in the night, and he used to be fully drunk and he used to come home, beat us up. Sometimes we used to be sleeping when by the time he reached home. He used to wake us up, beat us, and he used to beat my mom. Sometimes once I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I saw my dad pointing a gun at my mom, and it used to be a very bad experience. I remember one of the holidays when I had gone home. I came back home from playing with my friends, and when I reached home I saw my dad. He had beaten both my grandparents. My grandfather was paralyzed at that time and he was in a wheelchair, and my dad had pushed him on the floor, and when my mom went to stop him from beating them, he kicked my mom and he started beating her. I couldn't bear to see that sight. All I could think of was to just turn and run away from the place, and I just caught hold of my brother's hands. I just started running. I didn't know where I was going, just kept running, and I didn't want to go back home that day. Such experiences really used to make us very depressed in life.
Michael Babu, as he was known, became one of the most feared and ruthless factionalists the state had ever seen. He stockpiled weapons, manufactured bombs, and led raids into enemy territory. The district lived in a state of fear as rivals fought it out with bombs and guns on the roads. In the 14 years of his involvement in the politics of the faction-ridden district, he was responsible for many brutal murders, riots and criminal intimidation, booth capturing during elections, and other crimes against the state and its people. He was imprisoned a number of times, but this only served to make him more violent. Though born a Christian, Michael had a deep contempt for the religion and Christ, who he considered a weak man who could not prevent his own death. In his quest for power, Michael even began interfering in the affairs of the church. His arrogance had crossed all bounds.
While he was in politics, he also interfered and did much harm to the church activities in this area. He once came to my house with his henchmen in a jeep and attacked me, and I was stabbed with a dagger. I was badly injured and suffered a lot.
At that time he used to do many harmful things to the church activities also. A few times he threatened me also, once with a revolver.
Michael was the target of numerous assassination attempts. He was poisoned in jail, shot at by his rivals and the police, and bombs were hurled at him. A strange power seemed to protect him, and he believed in his invincibility and a glorious destiny. The years of living dangerously, however, took an immense toll on Michael's psyche. He became an alcoholic and a drug abuser with murderous rages and erratic mood swings. His sleep was disturbed with horrific nightmares, and terror was a constant companion to his drug-hazed mind. The fear of elimination by his enemies haunted him. He beat his family members even more savagely.
I remember the way he used to treat my mother. There were no limits to the cruelty that he used to show towards my mother. And even we, as kids, were not spared from his cruelty. He used to beat us a lot, and we just used to wonder why he had to treat us like that. And I even remember praying on quite a few occasions that my father should die. And that was a relationship that I had with my father.
My dad, he used to come to our school in a drunken state along with his guns and bodyguards. And I used to get so scared, and I used to feel ashamed in front of my teachers and my friends. Sometimes he would place an apple on our head and shoot at it from a distance. This is a sport he enjoyed with others too. These are just a few instances in my life. At a very early age, we were exposed to the darker side of life.
His family feared him, and his daughter wrote home from her school that she would commit suicide. But no amount of tears or entreaties touched his hardened heart. He took irrational decisions, and slowly his mind turned to morbid thoughts. Throughout these trying times, there was one who prayed unceasingly for Michael.
My husband used to behave like a wild beast. He used to beat my children and me mercilessly. Sometimes he used to drag me out of the house even in the middle of the night. I used to hide in wild thorny bushes, fearing snakes and scorpions. There were many times when he pointed his revolver at my children and me. But I loved him with God's love and prayed for him unceasingly. My children and I bore the pain and suffering for 17 long years.
Michael could no longer bear the extreme stress of his dangerous existence, and the escalating friction with the district police chief in 1993 forced him to flee the town. He went to the city of Madras, now known as Chennai. There he stayed with close relatives. The simple and unaffected life they led him to question his own wretched life. At Chennai, the Lord's hand was upon Michael in a special way, and the Lord started speaking to him. One night he prayed, asking God to speak to him. On that night itself, God spoke. He dreamed that he was laying hands on people and praying for them. Some of them were holding his hands and putting them on their heads. He got up in the morning and was confused. "Is not this the work of pastors?" was his question. He continued his prayers. After a few days, God spoke again through Isaiah 42:6. The light of God was shining on that verse. "I, the Lord, have called thee in righteousness, and will hold thine hand, and will keep thee, and give thee for a covenant of the people, for a light of the Gentiles." One night, when Michael was asleep, he distinctly heard God's voice. Exodus 4, Exodus 4, Exodus 4, Exodus 4. When he read that portion in the Bible, it showed how God called Moses for his ministry. When God's purpose was thus confirmed, Michael decided to quit politics to obey the Lord's calling. During this time of contemplation on God's purpose in his life, he experienced the transforming power of the Lord Jesus Christ. On March 30th, 1994, for the first time in his life, an overwhelming peace entered Michael. A heavenly peace that passed all understanding. The pervasive fear and worry that had once haunted him disappeared in an instant. Michael was now a man transformed. A man who was once a dreaded factionalist, a cruel husband and father, a drunkard and a terror, was now a child of God. Truly, an unbelievable miracle had happened.
When I was in Madras, after a few years more, he came to me personally and confessed. God has pardoned him and I pardoned him also. I prayed with him and blessed him.
The stunning events in Chennai were viewed with disbelief in Michael's hometown. Many believed it was only a ruse to escape his seemingly inevitable fate.